Hello everyone, I'm Nick Harrison with Rocky River Woodworks, and today we're going to be making. I start by using some leftover walnut and milling it down to be flat with square edges on the planer and the joiner. I mill this down to about a half an inch thick. I figured that'd be a good thickness for the faces and sides of my clock. I then head to the table saw and cut it into strips of 4.5 inches wide. That's based on the width of my clock insert. I then lay out my clock insert to see what length or height, I guess if you will, that the walnut strips need to be. After I have that figured out, I go over to the table saw again, raise the blade completely, and put on my magnetic analog angle finder. This will ensure that my blade is at a 90-degree currently. That's a good starting point, and then I will angle it, miter it down to 45 degrees. After I get it to 45 degrees on the dot, I remove the angle finder and lower the blade. I then lay out my 4.5 inch wide strips of walnut based on the mark that I made and make a miter cut of 45 degrees using my miter gauge. After that's complete, I dry fit everything, if you will, just to ensure that both edges of the 45 do make a 90 indeed. And then I lay it on the side piece of walnut, one of them, and trace it out. Again, these should be 45-degree lines, so just to ensure that, I use my 4-inch speed square here just to double check and retrace the 45-degree lines. After I have that done, I straighten my table saw blade back up to a 90, and I lay the walnut board flat on the table saw and make those 45-degree cuts, which will then be the shape of a triangle to make the side pieces of the clock. After ensuring that everything fits the way it should and all the angles come together, I use Titebond wood glue to glue everything together. There's no good way to hold this together, at least with the tools and resources that I have. You can see I have some clamps here, but that doesn't work too well on angles. So I temporarily held everything together for about 3 minutes just with my hands, just to get enough tackiness of the glue to temporarily hold it in place. And then I grabbed my pin nailer, a little 23 gauge pin nails, and pin nailed everything in place. After one side was complete, I flipped it over, did the other side, just enough to get the side installed, flip it back over again, making sure everything is flush and the angles come together like they should, and then pin nail everything in place once again. After the glue has dried, I lay the clock insert on one face and trace out the circle. This will let me know what size of a circle to be cut out so that the insert will go into the wood and the faceplate will be flush to the wood. In order to bore out the hole for the insert, I start at the drill press, just making a couple starter holes, and then I head over to the spindle sander and start with the smallest drum of the spindle and work my way up to larger drums. I also use a jigsaw in conjunction with this. As I work my way up to the larger drum on the spindle, I keep checking the line that I had traced out, the circle, just to make sure that I'm barely kissing that. I don't want to overdo it because I want that clock insert to fit into the wood circle snug and tight. After making sure that the clock fits, I then head over to my sanding station and begin sanding. I start at 60 grit, move to 80, 100, 120, 150, and then 220. Don't skip grits here. Make sure all sides and faces are sanded properly. It'll provide for a better finish and a better appearance of the final product. Towards the end of my sanding process, I gave a slight round over or chamfer on all of these square and sharp edges. After sanding was complete, I then used tung oil and applied it to the walnut. I like using tung oil on walnut because I think it really darkens it and gives it a awesome looking finish, and it makes that dark walnut color pop. After the finish has dried, I put the batteries in the clock insert, set it to the current time, put the back plate on the clock insert, and then put it in the hole. After that's done, this project is complete. Here's a few pictures of the project. I hope you enjoyed this video. You can find this project and more on my website at www.rockyriverwoodworks.com. I'm Nick Harrison. Thank you for watching.